Welcome back to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Today, we sit down with Hunter, the dynamic owner of the Arthur Murray Dance Studio in Lexington, Kentucky. Known for his passion, energy, and deep connections within the first responder community, Hunter shares a story that goes far beyond the ballroom. From teaching dance to countless heroes in uniform, to experiencing a terrifying moment when a stranger on a motorcycle pulled a gun on him, Hunter opens up about how that incident and the calm support of first responders in his life has left a lasting impact. This episode is about rhythm, resilience, and the people who show up when it matters most. Let's dive right in.
You're listening to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we honor the bravery of the first responders and the families who stand behind them. Real people, real stories, real heroes. This is 8158. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of 8158 Podcast, Stories of Sacrifice. Today's guest, we have Hunter, and the topic of this podcast today is on how first responders have impacted the civilian lives. And Hunter is a very special person. He is somebody we recently met a few months ago. He's an amazing, outstanding, outgoing guy. We think you're going to enjoy his story. So with that, let's welcome Hunter to our podcast. How's
Hey,
it
it's
going, Hunter?
great to see you. It's great to see you on air today. And your podcast is fantastic, by the way.
Thank you. We appreciate it. You know, we worked really hard to kind of get it going, and it's doing pretty well.
That is awesome. Glad to be a guest on the show. We've been dancing in Kentucky for over 25 years now, if you can believe it. And you guys yourself are dancing. We teach pretty much all of Kentucky. So if you want to learn to dance, Arthur Murray is definitely the place to be. And we've had some great stories over the years and great things that have happened, and just keep growing and having fun.
Right. So that kind of brings me to my first question, just to kind of share about our background and how we have come to know each other.
Yeah. I mean, because you guys came in for lessons and you were doing really well. Do you remember what brought you in for your first lesson?
Well, Brianne and I were talking about, what we wanted to do for the wedding, and we wanted to, learn how to dance. And I just said, why don't we just make this a date night, and let's just go learn to dance, and let's check this place out and see if we like it.
And then you meet this crazy blonde guy at the door, you know. You're thinking, what kind of place is this? So you all, when you came in, what impressed me most was just your energy. You guys were so connected when you came in, and you were talking about your wedding, but also about dancing together. And that was exciting, you know. And you had me talking about the energy right in the beginning, because it's like you all were so connected. And your first lesson, you literally rocked it. I mean, it was amazing. So hopefully it was easier than you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, definitely a lot easier. We definitely have a lot of fun. We love coming in there. Uh, it's unfortunate we have to cut our sessions a little short. We like to stay for the parties, but we have 2 dogs at home that we got to try to get to. But unless we have
What
a babysitter, then we can stay longer.
Yeah, the doggies are pretty important. We've all had doggies, and you got to take care of them. So you might have to bring your dogs to the studio sometime. People do that, believe it or not,
Oh
and
wow.
you never know. We've never had dancing dogs, not yet, but one of these days that might happen.
You never know.
The parties are fun though. When you come on a Friday night, we laugh about this because everybody takes private lessons and they get comfortable. And the parties are like probably the most exciting and intimidating thing that people do. Because I always joke, you probably heard me say this, you got to come to 5 parties, because your first party will scare you to death. The second party, you might enjoy it. By the third one, you like it. And by the fourth and the fifth, you're pretty much hooked, because it's a lot of fun. But just
Right.
walking in that door and all these people, and you think, man, they're better than me. But then once you try it, we're all the same, and everybody learned from scratch. So it's just getting out there, and the teachers make it easy, and we want you to have fun.
Right. That's kind of what we like to do, is we like to have fun, and that's one of our things that we like to do, to have fun, and we are getting better at it. So
You are. Actually, I saw a little bit of your last lesson, and we didn't want to stare and make you nervous, but it looked really comfortable. You all were kind of flowing a little bit, and it looked
Yeah,
like you were more natural. So that was exciting. That was really cool.
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
But
It's
we've been
definitely been
dancing.
awesome.
It's hard to believe how big the studio became because we came back around the year 2000 and we started the studio from scratch, so we really started from nothing. And right from the beginning we were like, well, we want to have a big studio, so if we're going to do it, if we're going to put the work in, let's make it big. And that's kind of what happened. It just started to grow, and little by little we started teaching all of Kentucky, and we've been very lucky to be one of the number one teaching schools in the United States for over 20 years actually. And that's been exciting to see people come in that never thought they could do anything like this, and it's very much outside of your comfort zone. We're talking about military. We have a lot of cops, we have a lot of firefighters, we have a lot of people in, medical personnel and military too. And when you first walk in the door, it is out of your comfort zone. I mean,
Yes.
you could do something else way harder, but then you walk in that door and you're like, whoa, this is so different. And, our number one goal is to put you at ease, to make sure that it feels good. So when you walk in, there's no stress. And usually after the first lesson, you're like, hey, I can do this. And that's the main thing. We always tell the teachers, if we're training them, that we want to find out, we want to make sure people know that they can do it and that they like it. Because if you can do something, you're going to keep doing it. If you like it, you're going to keep doing it. If those things aren't there, you're probably going to find a reason to stop.
Right. Right. Yeah, we definitely like it, and it's it's definitely brought us closer together.
You can see that. Well, you guys were great from the day one. So, and that makes it big. Like I said, when you mentioned your podcast, we got excited about it right away. We've had good fortune to be on several podcasts this year. And it's really been fun because you get to talk about different things and get people, you get to have a message, and your message is really good. So, we listened a little bit and it's like, it was really impressive. So, what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you and appreciate
Yeah.
that. Uh, so, what has your experience been like with first responders over the years?
So I have a couple unusual experiences. So over the years, we've taught a lot of people. We actually ended up teaching quite a few from dispatch, from 911. And that's a stressful job because you're on there and you're trying to help someone, but it's still, it can get to your nerves. So when people that are doing that come in for lessons, you can tell it's like a sigh of relief, because they get to focus on themselves, because you're really trying in those positions to focus on other people. You're really reaching out almost constantly, and it has an emotional impact, both good for the person, hopefully, but it's also a little bit draining. So you have to refill your own tank a little bit, and that's important in life. And so when you see people come in, they're really doing that. So we had that experience. I'll tell you more about a personal experience in a little bit, but we had a lot of people we teach in that area, and then we have a lot of cops. The great story was one time, we donated to FOP for every year, and so we just do that. We always like donating, being a part of it. And
Mhm.
one year we had a policeman come in and he says, now I'm going to do this, but I don't want you to tell anyone. I said, okay. So he gets on the dance floor, and as he looks around, there were four other police people around the floor that he knew. And he started laughing. And he was like, well, I guess the secret's out because everybody's here. And it was kind of fun, because everybody looked around and was like, wait, that's you. Oh, wait, that's you. So that was kind of a neat experience. And then we have firefighters coming all the time. Of course, we know the 24/47, 24/48 pretty well, and we're able to work around their schedules. So again, it gives it a good break for someone to come in and try it out and have some fun too.
Yeah, I bet you they have a lot of fun, and it kind of gets them out of that zone of go 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 to just kind of relax and
Yeah, it really does. What's really neat about the business is you get to see all different types of people. We train literally beginners all the way up to advanced. I mean, we've got people from Dancing with the Stars that are coming in like even next weekend for an event we're having, and those people come to Lexington. So you got the very high level up here, and then you've got where you're just starting out and you're wanting to social dance. And I think that sometimes you look around the room, and it always amazes me how many different types of people there are. There's not one demographic. I mean, it's literally everybody can learn to dance. And we joke, we say that. You've probably heard we say that a lot on TV and everything else, but it's true. I mean, you see people coming in literally all walks of life, and you learn to dance, and it changes something in your life. It makes a difference. Our mission statement used to be, basically, we change lives one step at a time.
right.
And that was the mission statement. So for a long time now, actually.
Yeah. You actually taught some people on Dancing with the Stars, have you?
Yeah, we worked with several, and It's funny, over the years, you meet so many different people. And we've actually had, believe it or not, coming to Lexington, I think it's 8 or 9 people from the show coming to Lexington, actually, which is really cool. And like next weekend, for example, we have a charity event. It's Dancing with the Lexington Stars. And we co founded that with Rotary. Gosh, we've actually done it 15 years. First year we did it on our own with, it was actually Kentucky Legends, which is a football team. And that was the first year we tried it. And then the next year, we actually partnered with Rotary and decided to continue it. And we did it for surgery on Sunday. So it was for people that couldn't afford surgeries, but that we were able to help them and, raise for them now at this point. And then we added baby health services this year for children to help the kids here in Kentucky as well. And but through that, we brought in people. So we had, like, one of the first seasons was Nick Kosovich. He worked with Emmett Smith, and we got to do a commercial with Emmett back in the day. There's one commercial that shows him dancing and me dancing. He's a big guy, and I'm not. So it's kind of funny to see that on camera, and you're like, okay, you can really see the difference. But he actually taught them the first season, worked with them, of course, and then we brought in other people. There was Chelsea Hightower, there was Lacey Schwimmer, we had Louis Van Amstel, we've had Anna Tribinskaya, the redhead on the show. And then
Mhm.
last year we brought in Edita Slavenska, and she came in, and she's coming back this year. And her husband, Alec Mazzo, won the very first season. We
Oh,
were really
wow.
hoping he was going to get to come this year and be with us, but he had some other conflicts with kids and things like that. So she's going to come in, and I'll be here Friday teaching, and then Saturday will be our celebrity judge for the event. But yeah, working with the people from the show is really fun because, like, when they brought the tour came to Lexington twice. We got to introduce it for Rep Arena that night, and I never will forget. That was one of the few times I've been completely nervous. I mean, just out of my mind. Because when you do a camera, it's one thing, you're looking at a camera. When you see 30, 40,000 people around you, it makes your heart go thump.
Yeah.
So I remember that feeling to this day, looking up and seeing Rep Arena and seeing all those people, and we just kept going. But we got to meet that year Harry Hamlin the first year. There's a great picture of my wife and I with his kids. Of course, his kids were really little back then, and now that was a long time ago. But every year it gets more exciting. Disney picked up the show last season, and so it's on Disney, Hulu, ABC, and it's kind of exciting because it's growing. I mean, it had better ratings last season than ever. So yeah, if you want to meet some of those people, they're kind of fun, and you get to see them in the studio too. We've had some stories. We've had some really unusual people come through sometimes, and all types.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I imagine it's
I try to
a
put
blast.
It really is. Yeah, I'll try to put breaks in because I don't want to, like, overtalk you. We got so many stories and things that could go on and on. And one of the funny things that led to this podcast for me, us talking, was an experience I had with 911 last year, actually.
Okay.
Yep.
So share us that experience that took place with you last year and what happened in detail. Just kind of give us a rundown of what took place there.
You would never believe it if it hadn't happened to you. You hear these stories about things that happen to people, and you think, well, that could never happen, or you just don't think about it. So last year there was a moment, and it was one night I'd come home late, and basically I couldn't find my credit card. So I thought, well, I've left it at the studio, left it on my desk. I'll go back and I'll get it. So I drove back. We live out in the country, and I drove back not thinking much about it, and like I've done many, many times, and couldn't find the credit card. Finally found it. So I'm driving back to basically to our house, and I'm driving out in the country, and somewhere along the way, I noticed that there was a motorcycle behind me. And it was one of those times where you don't think much about it, but it's like it's late night. I'm a night owl. So I was up around, 1 o'clock, 1:30. I'm just wide awake. I don't sleep like I should. So I was up driving, and I was the only one on the road, and there was a motorcycle behind me. So at first, I didn't think much about it. I'm driving along. What made it funny too was that my car was in the shop. So I had a loaner car. So I'm in a loaner Cadillac, which was not the color car I normally drive. And I'm driving down the road, and the motorcycle keeps following me. So at one point, I'm driving down a back road, and it's still behind me. I'm just getting a little more antsy at this point, thinking, okay, I this feels a little odd. So I turned in a side street, thinking, okay, I'll go to the side street and I'll circle around. And by that time, maybe they're going to pass me. It's not going to be a big deal. So I go
Mhm.
in the side street and I circle. And about, I don't know, about a minute later, I look in the back, and there they are again. And it's a very weird feeling when you all of a sudden realize you're being followed. And at that point, I was just it was too much of a coincidence. I'm thinking, okay, something's going on. I still drove a little bit further, The only really blessing that night that happened that I didn't, and again, pure luck, I don't know, providence, because I didn't pull into our neighborhood. If I just driven normally, I would have pulled into our neighborhood, probably pulled in my driveway, and it would have maybe been a different story. But luckily, I didn't do that, so I kept going. There's a little small road leading up to Harrodsburg Road. So I tried slowing down. The person behind me kept pace, and then I slowed down again. They came up beside me. So I gunned it, and they came up again. Now, at this point, we're talking 10 minutes in. I called 911. So I get on the phone, and the lady on the phone was absolutely fantastic. Again, they're dealing with a crisis situation or a potential crisis, and they were as calm, as easygoing. And she was like, "Hey, Hunter, we know who you are. We got you. We're locked onto your phone. We're going to track you." And I said, "Fantastic," because I said, "I don't know what's going to happen here at this point, and it may be nothing." So again, at this point, I'm still thinking, well, this might just resolve itself, and it's just a fluke. Because again, you just can't believe things are happening to you. She kept on the phone the whole time. They literally stayed on the phone with me for 25 minutes further. And so we're driving along. Again, same thing. I tried to slow down. The person pulls up. I said, "Well, they're beside me." And again, they're tracking me, thank goodness. And the person gets around behind me. So I get to the end of Harrodsburg Road, and there's a place where it ends. And at this point, it's a stop sign. So I pull up to the stop sign. The person pulls up beside me like this. I rolled my window down maybe about this much. And next thing you know, the person has a gun and they're pointing it straight at me like this. And I'm looking to the left and seeing a gun in my face. And I have to tell you, that's one of the weirdest, strangest, surreal moments I've ever had. The funny part was, and I said it worse than I'm going to say it on the podcast, but I was like, "Holy blank, they've got a gun," and I said it so loud, so I'm sure they were laughing on 911 because they've got it recorded, but I didn't know what else. I mean, it just came out of my mouth, and at that point, they stayed on the phone with me, and I really didn't know what to do next except I ducked and I gunned it. So I literally just hunkered down and gunned the car, thinking, well, if they shot, they're going to clip the window and maybe graze me, but I'll maybe get out alive. And I gunned it across. And at that point, I was heading toward Main Street, Nicholasville, and luckily the sheriff was up ahead of me, and they were already tracking and they were waiting. And so when I got to the end of it, luckily, and I was, you can talk about things calmly after the fact, but not during, because it was kind of a
Right.
crazy experience. And they came around behind me and followed the guy. I pulled off and went to there's a little BP station. And long story short, they took four of the cops. They chased him. They eventually caught him. You should have seen them flying down, Nicholasville Road. He ditched the gun about 100 yards from where they got him. It was a story and a half. But the lady stayed on the phone with me the entire time. So 911 was really great because, they weren't rushed. They were calm. They were, giving, here's what you need to do. Here's where you need to go. We're tracking you. We're following you. We'll have someone come, meet you, and again, they were doing that the whole time that I was on the phone with them. And I remember thinking, what would have happened if I didn't have my cell phone? I wasn't armed that night. So, there was no recourse really. Of course, I had this vision of the rental car getting bullet holes and taking it back and trying to explain that. Can you imagine saying, well, here's your rental car back. Here's the loaner car. It's got bullet holes all down the side. But
Right.
but they were really good, and they stayed on the phone and made quite a difference. And even when I got pulled over, there were four cops that came that night, and they stayed with me for a while because until we got it resolved. And it was, you're in the moment, you're calm, but then you start shaking afterward. So you get a little bit of almost PTSD the next few days. And I have to say, 2 weeks afterward, I remember seeing a motorcycle and getting like cringe, like, okay, it's just a weird feeling. It took about 2 weeks for that to go away, but they stayed on the whole time. At the end of it, before I hung up with them, the funny part was the lady on the phone, and I wish I could remember her name. She was very nice. She says, when this is all over, I might need to take some dance lessons. And I said, you know what? When this is all over, you're welcome to some free lessons because you did a great job with me. And not only did you keep me safe, but you kept me calm while I was on there driving in a very unreal situation. You just never think someone's going to pull a gun on you in a short range like that while you're driving. You just never, you see it in movies or TV, but you never think that's going to happen to you. And then when it does, you need help from people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how do you handle a situation like that when you have a gun in your face? It's just amazing
It's
that.
different because if you're face to face, yeah, if you're face to face, you could disarm a person or you could do something to mitigate the situation. But when you're in a car, it's just such an unreal situation because you're only about 3 feet from the person and you can't really grab the arm. You can't, well, maybe you could, but I couldn't. And, you're like, do I drive forward? Do I go backward? What do I do?
Right.
And, I got lucky. So, I just kept going forward, pretty much kept moving, basically. You always hear if you keep moving, you stay alive. So, and that is very true, actually.
Right.
Um,
Kept going
the
forward
next
right into the arms of law enforcement.
That's exactly right, and they were great. I mean, we ended up chatting for a while that night till probably 4:30 in the morning, and they were fantastic. There was one officer that came up, and he was joking about dance lessons, so whether he really wanted them or not, or he's just trying to make me feel comfortable, calm a little bit, it was very good in the moment. And one of the officers we had recognized because we had taught him, so that part was, not enjoyable, but it made it a little easier to bear that night. And then they escorted me back to my house, and he said, "You want an escort?" And I said, "Sure." So I went back, checked the surroundings. Luckily it was random. So, which to me made me feel a little bit better. So it wasn't like a targeted thing. It was totally random. So, but they did a good job. And like I said, the 911, what a job. You get off there, and later I was thinking about it for you and I were talking, and I thought, okay, it's great what she did for me, but I'm only one person. She's doing that all day long. They're handling multiple calls and multiple times, and you never know what you're dealing with. So every time they pick up the phone, they're like, "What's happening?"
Right. Yeah,
I'm sure
it's
you probably have some stories of that too.
oh yeah. Yeah, we've had dispatchers on here and they tell us their stories and they are constantly busy with a lot of things.
What is their take on it? Do they feel more relaxed when they're doing their job, or is it really a high stress? Well, we assume it's high stress. And when I've seen them come in the studio, they seem like that. But what do you think about that?
I know a lot of times they, internally they're stressed and they're, freaking out, but they have to keep their composure because, they have to maintain their composure for the job. And
Yeah,
then afterwards, and after the call's over, then they can finally just decompress.
I wonder how long it takes them to really do that because that has got to be tough. I'm sure when you talk to them, they're telling stories, multiple stories, because we're only one person. But it's interesting to have that kind of job. And what drives someone to that type of job? What makes you say one day, I want to do that? I want to do, I'm sure you've heard that too.
Yeah. One of our guests, she was actually a firefighter, and she was injured on the job. Well, she wasn't injured on the job; she was injured in an accident,
Really?
and it came to the point where she couldn't work the job anymore, but she still wanted to serve, so she went into dispatch.
Huh. And that's what led her into that. That's interesting,
Yeah,
actually. So maybe that happens more than we think. Because again, you're still wanting to serve, and do that, but you got to do it in a different way, perhaps.
yeah,
They ought to
yeah,
make everybody take a class, in school and get to experience something like that. Maybe not real, but experience it to have some empathy to know what other people go through. Because I think a lot of people, when I'd relayed the story to one of our employees the next week, I could tell there was no comprehension because they were like, "Well, is it a computer you were talking to?" And I said, "Oh no, this is a live person. This is a person that is on the job and they're working and they're
right,
dealing with a human being." So, and more times than not, nowadays we call someone and we get a computer, we get an AI, and and sometimes it's helpful, but a lot of times you just really want to talk to a human being and you want to have an interaction, and I think that goes a long way.
right. Absolutely, it's better to have the human contact than it is to have a computer because you can have a connection with a human more so than a computer.
Absolutely. I know if you had a computer, you might be visualizing in those situations, the Pac-Man sound, wah, 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 that's not good. So you have to laugh afterward. That's one thing we discover.
So, how would you say that this impacted your life, dealing with the law enforcement overall?
It's funny. We always have had great respect for people in law enforcement, fire, any type of emergency services because we see what they do and they tell me stories, when they come in. So, but not having dealt with it directly, that's a whole different thing. Although actually, come to think of it, this is the second time that I've had to deal with 911 in a very unusual situation. This time I was a little bit older, so I was able to keep it more in perspective. But I hadn't even told you that story. Well, years ago, I had a house in Lexington, and there was a place where the back door had no blinds. So one night I was there and I was staying up late watching probably a scary movie and just, hanging out by the TV, and I hear this bang, bang, bang. And again, this is in a good Clays Mill area neighborhood. And, nothing too bad happens. You're thinking this is pretty easy, pretty good house. And all of a sudden I go back there and there's a guy standing at the door looking in on me. And that was not a good feeling. So, and we tried to tell the guy, go away. What do you need? What's wrong? So he goes around to the front of the house, bang, 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 same thing. And I'm thinking, what is going on? And at this point, long story short, we had a weapon and I made a declaration, don't come in or I'm going to fire. And the person just kept banging. And then there was blood on the door. And so at that point, I called 911. And that was probably the very first time I'd ever done that. And the same thing, and this we're talking 2006 or 7 maybe, so quite a while ago. And just like this time, they were super calm and they were super efficient and really good. And they stayed on the phone pretty much the whole time. And finally, the paddy wagon came, and it took 6 of the guys to get this guy in the car. The end of the story ended up okay. It turns out that he thought my house was somebody else's, and there was a bar fight. So there was blood on the handle on the door and everything. So, but watching the policeman get him in that paddy wagon was something because he was on something, and so his strength was extraordinary. And it took 6 people to get him in that car. And I thought, man, what could you do? Well, you would handle it very well. But again, the person on the phone kept me talking, and kept me on the phone until it was all done and making sure. So, the impact afterward, when these things happen, you get done, you feel relieved, but then you get a little PTSD because you're like, okay, what just that your nerves start to kick in. So the next couple of days, I was a little shaky and I'm like, okay. And every time I looked around and saw a motorcycle, I remember thinking, yikes. So, and, but
Happening.
you kind of remember, yeah, it does freak you out for a while, but then you kind of remember that person on the phone and how calm they were and you think, okay, they dealt with this every day. So because they've dealt with it every day, the police, the cops, the firefighters, everybody's dealt with these things every day. You do feel a little more secure because that's their job. Their job is to protect and to serve. So that gives you a sense of confidence because they're doing that. And I think afterward, as a civilian, you look at things a little differently and you think, okay, I'm glad they're doing that. And not to say I'm glad they deal with that every day because you don't want anything bad to happen to anybody else. But the fact that they deal with that in such volume kind of gives you a sense of confidence because it's routine for them, where it's not routine for us if it happens, but for them it is. Just like if you come in for a lesson, someone comes in, they're scared. We've done it 1,000 times. So we know we're going to make it easy for you. We're going to hang on to you. We're going to make that easy. So that hopefully gives them a sense of confidence, just like the 911, the dispatch does for us.
We will return after this quick ad break.
The William H. Bill Butler Jr. Foundation is on a mission to honor first responders and support those who serve. We provide scholarships for families who have lost a hero in the line of duty, offer second chances to juvenile offenders who are working to rebuild their future, and help new recruits pursuing careers as first responders. Through generous donations and the sale of merchandise, we're building a community that uplifts, empowers, and creates lasting impact. You can be a part of this mission as well. Visit 8158podcast.com to donate or shop today. Together, we can support those who serve, honor those we've lost, and give hope to those who need it most. Behind every badge is a story, and behind every story is a sacrifice. This is the 8158 podcast, where we honor the lives and legacies of first responders and their families. If our mission speaks to your heart, if these stories move you like they move us, join us on Patreon. For just $5 a month, you'll get ad-free listening, exclusive merchandise, behind-the-scenes content, and video episodes only available to our patrons. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement, and you can be a part of it. Support us at patreon.com/8158podcast. Let's continue to share the stories that deserve to be heard.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean they deal with these things on a regular basis, and they have their policies, and they train for these kinds of situations, so they're well equipped to handle certain situations, just like with the
Oh,
dance studio.
yeah.
You
I
guys
wonder
are
how
there.
many calls they do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you said there was some kind of function going on that you had planned, or
Yeah.
some kind of
It's
drive
kind of
going.
exciting. And I
Okay.
apologize if I talk over you. My earpods have a slight delay today. I don't know if it's the weather or this crazy rain, but so I apologize if I talk over you a little bit. It's interesting. It's called Dancing with the Lexington Stars, and it's May 10th this year at the Carrick House downtown. And we co-founded it with Rotary. The idea was to provide, it was really funny how it started. Our lives are full of stories. So apparently. And in the beginning, we were going to do it with a different group because we had co-hosted for basically for Susan G. Komen back in the day for the Pink Tie Gala here in town for breast cancer, the breast cancer awareness. And so I'd emceed that for a couple of years. And so when we did that, we thought, well, we'll just partner with them and keep this going. So the very week we were getting ready to do all that, we bought the websites, got everything going, and they were busy, so they didn't call me back. It was just a fluke. And at that time, there was a gentleman named Gerald Marble, who was the president of Rotary, really nice guy. He ran Spindletop for several years, the Boone Center for UK. He passed away a couple years ago, but a great guy. And he called one day and he said, "Hey, we're talking about doing something, and we need to get together." So that very next day, he walked in the studio and we sat down. And again, they hadn't called me back yet. So the two of us just started talking and said, let's do something really cool. But if we're going to do it, let's make it big. So we kind of came with this idea for Dancing with the Lexington Stars. And we didn't have any idea really how big it was going to get. That first year, we had it at the Marriott Griffin Gate out on Newtown Pike. And we sold out every room in that hotel. I mean, it was unbelievable. Every meeting room, every side room, it was wild. And we had so much fun, and it raised probably more money for the charity. We don't keep any of the money. They don't either. It all goes to charities. So it really took off. And then every year we just started doing it and it kept growing. And this will be technically like we're calling it like it's the 13th year of actually physically doing it. 2020 we didn't get to, but 14 years with Rotary, 15 years total, and just having a great time with this. But that's going to be this Saturday. It is sold out. I would love to say that I could offer you tickets at this point, but it sold out about 4 weeks ago, actually.
Oh
So I think
wow,
we need a bigger, yeah, I know. It's one
need
of
a
those
bigger
great
stage.
things because you got people coming. Right. I mean, it's completely full. But it's at the Carrick House. They do a great job. I kind of think now we almost need a bigger place because it's like we could have sold easy 50 more tickets this year. We've had calls galore. And that night from like 6 to 7, everybody comes in. You get to see the red carpet. Everybody dresses up. It's a semi-formal affair, and this year there's 8 local celebrities. And what we do every year is we take these celebrities from Lexington. We've had everybody. So you figure in all these years, over 140 people from Lexington have done this, and we donate 12 lessons for each person, and they dance with their partner or they dance with the teacher, and they pick a dance, and it might be cha-cha, salsa, foxtrot, anything, and they have 12 lessons to learn a routine and to pick their song, and then that night they get out there and they're going to perform, and it's really exciting to see people. Most people have never danced, so you see them getting out there and it's really fun to watch, a little nerve-wracking sometimes too. And then we televise it. We have all 4 networks there this year. All the news anchors come. They help, they do more like interviews and celebrity things. Excuse me. I'll be co-hosting it or the whole night, really hosting for the show. And we bring in the chairs of the event. I mean, it's just a lot of fun. So, if there's any tickets that open up, you can always go to their website for it, which is dancelexstars.com. And you can see if there's any tickets. But right now it is sold out. But you can still vote for your favorite person.
Okay.
And that's kind of exciting. So you can vote for people. There's a lot of unusual people that join this every year. People you never thought would dance. We've had firefighters, we've had policemen, we've had news anchors. We have some of those this year. We've had sports people. This year, we have a guy. He's a great guy, young man who worked. He's the tight end for UK. Josh Caddis. He's tight end UK football, and he's dancing this year.
Oh,
So,
nice.
and it's like dancing in the event. So you never know. Last year, we really wanted to say hi to Pope because that would have been really fun, and he came to visit. but I was literally like this on the camera the whole time, and I was like, oh, we never got to say hi. But we've taught some of the UK athletics as well along the way. We just finished working with Andrew Carr and his lovely fiance. They're getting ready for their wedding, and of course, I'm not very tall, so when I said hello, I was like, dude, oh, you're so tall, and great guy, great fun. But we think some of UK athletics, both football and basketball, will be there in attendance this night. So it's going to be a lot of fun. You never know who's going to join in. And it goes from 8 till 10, and people get on that floor, and the nerves hopefully go away, and they get out there and they dance their dance. We always say, as long as you don't fall down, you're in good shape, or you don't split your pants or do something crazy or fall, or anything can happen. We've had that happen too one year. I won't say who it was, but we've had some great stories from the event, things that happen, and things you would never expect. And we raise money for it. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and it will be streamed live. So if you go to the website this Saturday, it'll be on there. We usually take clips of the event and we put it back. We also air it on social media and things like that. We did it live on ABC for about 7 years straight, and that was a
Oh,
lot of fun too because we ran it on the show. And so the difference in that was that everything is scripted to the minute, to the second. So it's a little more relaxing now because we've got a couple hours on camera. But when you do it for TV and it's like that, I mean, it's every second is scripted. So it's a lot of fun. You just can't mess up. So you just keep going. When there is a mess up, they'll talk in your ear and tell me what to do. I'll keep going and have some fun. Hopefully, who knows, next year, maybe you'll want to dance to something like this. Who knows?
you
If you
never
have an
know.
interest,
Yeah.
that's how this begins, as we start talking to people around January, really. And it just, people join in. And it's, you can promote your podcast, get out there and dance, go crazy, and have some fun too. You never think you can do it. Nobody ever feels ready. There's a phrase we used to use: you'll never feel ready for anything, but you'll be ready if you do it. And
Right.
so that's how it is for this event.
You never know. We might just have to try that out because I'm no stranger to competition.
I could tell your background. Tell me, like, what made you want to be a competitor? What made you be competitive?
I played a lot of sports in school. I
Yeah.
played football. I played baseball. I wasn't really much into basketball, but just football and baseball and stuff like that.
So you're a baseball fan too. We
Yeah.
like baseball. We
Yeah.
don't watch it as much, but I did get to throw one opening pitch for the Cincinnati Reds when many years ago when I lived in Ohio. I was able to teach Marge Schott, and she owned the Reds. And to me, she was always a nice lady, very, very cordial, very, like very nice. So they did a charity thing one night, and she said, "You want to throw the first pitch out?" Of course, me not being a pitcher or anything, that was an experience. The mound is a lot further away than you think it is. But we did get to throw one pitch, and that was a lot of fun. But yeah, baseball. Now Johnny Damon, baseball player, danced in 2019 in Dancing with the Stars, and we had a great picture with him. But he could not dance. He could play baseball really well, but he couldn't dance. So the
Right.
baseball people on the show don't always do as well. Basketball tends to do well, and football people do amazingly because of the agility training. So the
Right.
football stars always do well, and gymnasts do great, of course. So if you're watching Dance with the Stars like in the fall, you'll see the football people usually rise to the top. Basketball, it's 50-50. Baseball down here, and gymnastics at the top. So it's kind of fun.
That's pretty.
I know I'd show you on the screen the pictures, but I don't think it would show. Actually, it might, depending on how crazy I should have. When it comes to technology, I am not very good, as you can probably tell. So you know way more about technology than we do, and I tend to break more things technical than I don't. So that part makes it kind of entertaining. But computers, the reason we switched to Apples in the studio is because all of the Macs or all the PCs I bought kept crashing terribly every time I touched them. So if I touch computers, they will break pretty much. And so far, I've been lucky with Apple that I can even now. Now, finding this picture, of course, when you try to find something, that's when you can't. And I'll see if you can see it on the screen. So that was Johnny Damon
Okay.
and
Yeah.
us. Can you see
Okay.
it there? Yeah, I'm trying to get where there's no glare. Great
Yeah.
guy. He's the one with the mohawk. And we're the crazy normal ones. He's the one with the mohawk like this.
Right.
But again, great baseball player, but not the best dancer.
Yeah, I've been in talent contests as well because I play music myself. So,
What kind of music do you like to play?
I've played all kinds of different genres of music. I personally like rhythm and blues and country and like Spanish staccato type of music.
Oh,
But
wow.
I played heavy metal, country, rock, classic rock. blues, all kinds of stuff.
That is really cool, actually. I may need a guitar lesson along the way. That my wife can play piano. She's got a great voice. I can't sing. I can't play an instrument. I play the radio. That's about it. So that, as we said, the jokes never get better. The dancing will. The jokes do not. But I do wish I could have played. We got to hang out. One of my rock groups that I liked as a kid was Kiss. So they're
Yeah.
not really heavy metal, but they're fun. And we got to meet them and hang out with them a little bit in 2019. And there was a moment where if I could have played guitar, I probably could have played a little bit with Paul Stanley. But because I didn't know how, that didn't happen. But now I wish on my bucket list that I had learned to play.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no easy feat. It takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, a lot of practice.
With your Latin rhythms, with your percussive skills that you have, though, that will make cha-cha, rumba, salsa, bachata, merengue really easy for you, hopefully.
Right, right. That's why
Of course, you still
sometimes
got to
you'll
do
see
it
me
with
close my eyes when I'm
it,
dancing.
right, because you'll be able to feel the music. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only difference
I'm
is you got to
listening
do it
to
with
music.
someone else in front of you and guide them along.
Right.
I
Yeah.
saw your flag in the back. How long did you serve in the military?
I didn't. I was not military service. My cousin was in military service, so a lot of my family were in the military. My grandfather on my father's side was in the Marines in World War II. My uncle on my dad's side was a Marine in Vietnam, and my
Wow.
brother was in the Marine Corps in '94. Also, on my mom's side, my grandfather was in World War II in the Army, and we grew up around law enforcement as well because my step grandfather on my mother's side, he was a police detective in Berkeley, California,
Wow.
and
Wow.
my dad was a firefighter as well in California. So, plus my
So you have
cousin
a
was,
background everywhere.
yeah, my cousin
Yeah.
was law enforcement. My first marriage, my stepson, he was in the Marine Corps in San Diego. Unfortunately, he passed away. He was killed.
Mhm.
Uh, Hit and run. Somebody hit him on base, and
Mm.
he died a few days later.
I'm really sorry. You hear that a lot with hit and runs. I mean, there's more of those than you would ever expect. It's just everywhere.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
But you're able to help a lot of people with your podcast now, and you're able to reach a lot of people, and it's very
Yes.
motivating. And hear the stories and hear, and with been able to do a few podcasts this year. And I think what's really cool about it is the people that are hosting the podcast, like yourself. You're really getting a message out to people, and you never know when that's going to make an impact. You might be in your car and you tune in and you're listening to the podcast on your phone, and you hear something that clicks, and you go, you know what? Better. I feel a little more motivated. I feel like, okay, I can do one more thing. And that's the key,
Right.
is one more day, one more step, one more thing you do, and you just keep moving. And who knows what impact you may have, even impact beyond what you know. There was I think anytime you're in a service business, you get to make an impact. But we get so busy sometimes doing all the things we do, we forget about it. And
Mhm.
we tell that to our employees sometimes because you get thank you letters and you get things. But I remember in the 90s, I was in Ohio, and there was a bagel shop next to the studio. And again, you're there every day, you get a bagel, and there's this little lady that walked by, and every day she'd walk by the studio, and there was a window out front, and I was in there kind of managing the studio, and I'd see her walk by, and finally one day I went out and said hi, and she literally looked down and she went forward, so I started doing that about every day because I thought, well, someone's got to say hi to this lady. So we just kind of started, and every time I would do it, I'd invite her to come in, take a lesson. She didn't do it, and probably after about 3 months of this, I did finally get her in the studio. So this lady comes in and she's taking lessons and having a great time and seems really normal, right? Just like a normal person like us. And so anyway, she eventually moves away. I get a letter probably 6 months after. And the letter would bring tears to your eyes because what we didn't know, I think what my point is, what you don't know is amazing sometimes, because she had been walking back and forth and was contemplating suicide and really
Oh,
had planned
gosh.
it all out. And I said, well, and she said in the letter that so far she was faking at one point walking past the studio with an empty bag. There was no bagel in the bag because I was the only one that said hi to her during a whole day. And I didn't know this at the time, of course. And we just assumed she was getting a bagel. But anyway, she credited the studio then for just pretty much saving her life because she was like, none of her family was connecting to her, none of her friends. And we didn't know it at the time. All we knew is there was a person walking by and we were trying to be friendly and say hello. And we ended up doing it literally at the same time every single day for, I mean, days on end. And we didn't know that that was, she was walking to have someone to talk to. So, you know, you never know you're going to make on someone. And with your podcast, you know, you're so many people and you may hear some of the stories, but you never know. You might not hear them later.
Right. Yeah, we don't often hear a lot of the stories with the aftermath, and you know, we do get a lot of praise from our guests and say that, you know, we are helping a lot of people, we're saving a lot of lives just by speaking about mental health, and you know, it's unfortunate that we have so many first responders that consider suicide as a lot,
A
you know,
lot.
as an option, and it happens, and it's happened too far often, and you know, that's kind of what we want to do, is try to prevent and help as much as we
Hmm.
can. If we need to connect these people with some of the organizations that we've connected with, or if we can just talk to them and to kind of bring them in and just, you know, just kind of not really counsel them, just give them an ear to speak.
That's fantastic. That's all people need most of the time. I mean, again, they don't feel like they can talk to someone or they can't get somewhere, and then it just piles up, and then they, you know, they suffer in silence. So again, if you're doing that, I'm sure you get a lot of contacts from that. You know, that's what one of the reasons when I looked up your podcast and I was like, I would love to be on here because again, what you do for people is really good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
pretty exciting actually. And we've
Yeah,
actually talked about doing some other. Yeah, okay.
yeah. You talk about doing some other things, or
Some other charities and other things along the way and just keep expanding the reach because you never
yeah,
know who you can reach sometimes and just keep that going. So truly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's
We
hard to
just
run a podcast. It's hard to do what
right.
you're doing.
That's why I got Brienne. She's the backbone of the whole thing. You know.
So she is your producer as well, right? So she's
Yeah,
producing
she does all the. I do all the editing and the music and all that stuff, but she does all the production. You know, the productions and the she gets it out there to the media and all that stuff. So
behind every great person is an even greater person. And I
yes,
always laugh about that because my wife, she helped write the scripts for Dancing with the Stars. She helped do, I mean, she really behind the scenes did all of it. And, a lot of times, it just, you go along and you put on these events and nobody sees that or nobody knows that they did all the work behind it, and I think that's a big part of it. So, we always, it's a big, we don't always say it enough, but it's really important. And again, we can be on camera and we can do this part and we can make that look easy, but there's always someone helping or, and that's not the easy part. That sometimes is the
right,
hardest part because we might like to talk, we might like to keep going,
right,
like,
right.
and cut them off, So,
Yeah, that's why I like to give her a lot of credit, and you know, let people know that she's the backbone of the whole operation, because she is phenomenal. She does a great job, and you know, she helped us get the William H. Bill Butler Foundation going. So we have 501(c) nonprofit organization started.
mhm,
So that's up and going. So we just
that's
got to
amazing.
figure out how to drum up some charity donations for that, and
Right.
you know, so
We're
we can
always
help
glad to
our
help you with
friends as well.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's great you started your own. I remember when you all mentioned that, I was like, wow, that's impressive because it's not always easy to do that. And you
right.
started it, and now once it's done, you can grow it and you can make it have such an impact.
Yeah, and we're going to try to
Yeah.
help our first responders as much as we can. Um,
How long ago did you do that? How long ago did you set it up?
uh, like a month or so ago, a couple months ago.
Yeah, wasn't I remember you talking about it, so it didn't
Yeah.
seem like that long. That's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, it was. It came pretty fast. I mean, this podcast has grown fairly quickly, and also you know, we saw the success in the podcast, and Billy's wife, uh, she said we had to keep doing the podcast, and you know, I got a lot of permission from her to do it. You know, to use his
Did
badge
you?
number and to use his name for the foundation and stuff, and she was really down for it. She's also the vice president of our foundation as well. We wanted to include her in that, in the decision making of all the stuff that we do. I'm obviously
That
the president. Brienne, she is the treasurer, and her mom, Brienne's mom, is the secretary. So we're
that's
pretty
really
set
great.
up as far as that is. You know, we made it a family thing, and we want to honor first responders as best as we can, and we want to try to help them out
Yeah.
as much as we can, help them out, help their families out, whatever we can do.
Yeah, and that's so important. Like I said, it gets overlooked a lot. So the fact that you do that is fantastic because we hear the stories all the time. I think the fact you set that up on your own is pretty amazing, actually, and it'll keep growing. It'll keep. We'll obviously help promote it for you, and do all those things too. Everybody kind of wins together. It's like everybody becomes a team, especially in Lexington. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's connected, and if you can help other people, that's what it's all about.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And just so people know that when they donate to either the podcast or to the foundation, we don't get paid for that. We are doing this on our own, and a lot of that money goes. So we have merchandise that's coming out, and the majority of the proceeds will go back into creating more merchandise, and then the other portion will go into the foundation.
That's
And
fantastic. Do you have a website for the merchandise yet?
it's on our podcast website.
It's on the main one. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We'll put it out there actually because that's exciting. I should have bought some merch so I could have worn it here.
Yeah, we just got it. It's starting to come out. They're mailing them out as soon as as soon as they get them done, and we haven't even got ours yet. So these were bought when my cousin was when he was first killed, and they first made all this stuff. So we got all these beforehand. So ours is a little different. I mean, it's similar, but it's a little different than what
Yeah.
it's going to be
But it's
produced.
nice
But
you
it's
wear
still
that because
pretty
you
cool.
you see it. Yeah, you
Yeah,
see what it is. That's important actually too. I can't wait to see it when it comes out. So we will have to order some, and then we do a follow up, and then we'll wear that. We'll do something for that.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and you come across anybody, you could kind of share the podcast with them and just tell them what it's
Absolutely.
about, and just kind of a lot of your law enforcement buddies and your firefighters or EMS or anybody that comes in,
hmm
just share the podcast with them, and
That's the
just
goal.
have them
That's
check it
exactly
out. They don't have to be a guest necessarily. They could just listen.
right.
You
Yeah.
know, it might help them in the long run if they're
Yep.
struggling.
Just hearing different voices with different messages, uplifting. It gives you again a chance to go one more day and just keep going, and hear something positive. That's all it takes sometimes is just, with stories we relate. We're creatures of stories. We used to train our staff once upon a time on telling what we called movie stories. Because if you go to a movie and I tell you a story about something, you're going to put yourself in the plot. You're going to put yourself in there and think, well, that relates to me. So I think we learn that way. We're hardwired for stories, with human beings. So if you can hear a story about something that is uplifting, that's positive, even if you're halfway listening to it, or you're just listening while you're doing something else, it filters through. It filters through the subconscious, and you're going to be a little better off that day, and maybe a little better off the next day. It's cumulative. So you stack that together. The next thing you know, you're in a pretty good place.
Right, right. You get all negative out and you put all the positive in.
That's exactly it. You just got to keep doing that all the time. So if someone's listening to this, remember that and listen to all the episodes and stay positive.
Exactly. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I Unless you have anything else to share with us today, that's pretty much all I have.
No,
Um,
it's great. A joy to be on here with you. I mean, me, I could probably talk forever. So it's good to probably limit it to an hour and then, enjoying chatting with you. And like I said, we'll promote your podcast and congratulations on this and your dancing. You're doing great. So it's really a joy to get to know both of you.
yeah, it's been pretty awesome. It's been an honor to be able to come into your studio and to be taught by the best. And we're doing really well with it. We enjoy it. It's comfortable now. It's not as nerve wracking anymore
Right.
as it was initially, but
Yeah.
we got comfortable with it, and we make light of it. We have fun with it, and
Yeah.
we definitely love our teacher. He's pretty awesome.
You've got a good teacher. He is very, very, they're all good. We're very lucky. Our staff, most of them have been there for a long time and they're really good at what they do. Of course, I couldn't end the podcast without saying, okay, if you want to learn to dance, how do you find us? So, if
Yeah,
you're watching this, go to dancingiseasy.com, dancingiseasy.com, and that's our website. Or you can also call or text 859-278-7711, and you'll come in and dance and have some fun. Funny story for you ending too. When we first got that phone number, it's such an unusual phone number. There was a Walgreens on the corner over off Harrisburg Road. Their number has only two differences. Theirs is 11. Ours is 7711. And we first opened, we were getting phone calls. Can you fill a prescription? And this happened pretty much daily. And finally, we'll give you the learn to dance. So take 3 cha-chas and call me in the morning. So then go from there. It's a joy being on here with you today.
Yeah. It's definitely been an honor. I'm glad you finally got on here to tell your story. I know you told us your story, and when we first came in, we sat down in your office and we had our conversation, and it was just an amazing thing that we're glad that it turned out good, and that law enforcement was there and
Yes,
dispatch was there to help you through it.
very much so. And if someone hears that, they don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call them if you need them. So, just do it. No, it was a pleasure. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much for having me. It's a joy to be on your podcast.
Outstanding. It was a pleasure. We will be seeing you hopefully Friday.
Perfect.
So everybody, this is Hunter. He is a legend, and he is an awesome person and a great dancer.
Oh, thank you
Uh,
very much. Thank you. We appreciate it. You guys have a great day. Thank you so
you
much.
too. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Every story we share is a tribute to the courage and resilience of first responders and their families. If this episode impacted, encouraged, or inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who supports first responders. Follow us on all social media platforms at 8158 Podcast for updates. 8158 Stories of Sacrifice is a team effort. Rico brings the stories to life through casting, writing, original music, and editing. Brianne Shipley as production manager, handling booking, social media, graphics, promotion, marketing, website management, and logo design. Please visit our website at 8158podcast.com. For questions, collaborations, or to share your story, our email address is contactus@8158podcast.com. Until next time, let's continue to honor the legacies and remember the sacrifices of those who serve, every brave man and woman on the front lines, protecting and defending us all. This is Rico signing off and honoring 8158.